Welcome back to the Carla and Crappy Show, boys and girls. I don't know what week it is. That's not important. It is Big Boy Bowl week is what it is. It is. We're going to talk about the New Year's Six Bowls, which shall include the two college semi. So we can call this we can also call it the semifinal four edition, the Final Four edition.
Yes.
This godforsaken year is almost over edition.
Woo!
There are a number of things. Do you have any suggestions, Carla?
The not as fun as Bowlapalooza edition. I don't know.
True. Yes, that's true.
I like the big boy bowls. Only if it's sponsored by Bad Boy Mowers.
That's just like a sponsor the whole day or 3 days or whatever. I guess it's 3 days.
Yep. The Bad Boy Mowers Big Boy Bowls. Say that 4 times fast.
The ESPN folks, take notes. We have sponsorship opportunities for you for 2021, when hopefully this will be slightly more normal.
Yes.
Or 2022, 21, 22.
Drink to that.
Well, yeah. So yeah, as I said, today's show is the New Year's Six Bowls. They are, so it's kind of the highlight of bowl season. And we will wrap with our looks at the 2 semifinal games before we come back next week and do one last show for the 2020/2021 season. Before we go there, we were a week into bowl season. What's been the best game that you've watched so far?
I went back and looked, and it's like, wow, we haven't had a lot of bowls yet, and that's because of how messed up this year is, and the fact that there just aren't as many bowls. So I would say hands down the best bowl that I've watched so far was Saturday night's Cure Bowl, which AJ called on the Bowlapalooza show. That was going to be the bowl game of the season, and it's going to be tough to beat. When I'm sitting there watching a meaningless college football game, and I audibly screamed at the television when Liberty fumbled. My husband was sitting next to me, and we both went, "Oh my gosh, what just happened?" at the same time. So yeah, it's a shame for for our beloved Chickens.
Yes.
They had the opportunity there to win that game in overtime and just couldn't do it. And so it's a tough way to end.
Yeah, I mean, and it's crazy to think about it. I don't feel like Liberty would have won if they'd played the original game. I feel like Coastal would have won at that point. That was like a peak of the season. They certainly played a perfect game against BYU.
Yeah.
But it's just timing and all of that stuff, and it was cool that you got to see that game. It's nice that it worked out that way. But yeah, too bad for the Beach Chickens. I have a confession: I did not actually see that game. I know, and I don't know what it was doing. What was he doing on Saturday?
Well, AJ
night?
and I were blowing up your phone, so
yeah.
That.
Oh no, I was well aware of what was going on.
As we're both screaming at each other and copying you.
Yeah. The game that I had the most fun with, I have a game and a runner-up. I think was the Buffalo and Marshall.
Yeah, it was a good game.
It was a good game in a different way. Probably not the same sort of entertainment value that a lot of people would be looking for in a bowl game. But for a Midwestern guy like me, it was awesome. Let's run the football and play defense and win the game 17-10. And kind of a cool touch that Kevin Marks, the substitute tailback in Buffalo's backfield, was the one who scored the winning touchdown while he was spelling Jarrett Patterson. But a fun game, entertaining game, tight game, certainly. So that's probably the best one I watched. My runner up would be, I got to go back and look at what game was that? I did see part of this, so I'm gonna count this as my runner up. Louisiana and UTSA.
Mm-hmm.
And the Roadrunners actually played really well in that game. Even got to the point where, they were down enough that you look at their run dominant offense, you think, okay, they're not going to be able to come back, and they still they hung in and made that a game through most of the second half. So again, entertaining, good football, and a lot of fun, and a surprisingly nice performance from UTSA.
The New Mexico Bowl in Frisco, Texas that
Yes.
had the Albuquerque emblem in center field. Because that was
Awesome.
Houston. Yeah, right. Awesome. Yeah, Houston and Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
And that game was more entertaining. And maybe it was just because we didn't have anything else to do on Christmas Day. And so while we were making Christmas dinner, we had that game on.
Yes.
And it was just, it was, we jokingly called it the Also Ran Bowl because it was Holgo and Todd Graham. We had forgotten about that part when we talked about it on Bowlapalooza. And just watching the two of them on the sidelines and just, Holgo just kind of pitching a fit because that's what Holgo does. And, it was just, it just the epitome of 2020 in a football game, really. Right. I just, with it being in a different location. So that game was kind of stupid fun too.
Well, could you call that game like the side yard brawl? If with those two guys, could that?
Maybe. Yeah.
Like, what's the grass strip in front of between the sidewalk and the street? Maybe that would be the appropriate
median bowl.
Median bowl. Yeah, that could be.
It was played in the soccer stadium too. That was the other fun part. It was played in Frisco's soccer stadium, so it was
where they've had bowl games for a couple years at least.
Yeah.
And it's a nice venue for that. It's probably a realistic size for the Frisco Bowl anyway. I'm not sure about the Houston and but yeah, that's just part of the weirdness that is this year, huh?
Yep. It's the gift that keeps on giving. So they say.
It is. The New Year's Six games are surprisingly not weird.
Yeah,
I mean
they're kind of chalk, but like the matchups are kind of like, wait, what?
The matchups are fun. The fact that the Rose Bowl is not. We'll get to that. I'm sure you guys have heard this already, but if you're ready to go, we can dig into these with the four non-CFP games. Okay. And they actually begin. We're taping this on a Monday, so we can have this out in plenty of time for Wednesday night, and maybe also so we can watch the Tuesday night bowl games,
which are going to be spectacular.
Yeah. So yeah, that is a thing as well. But at 8 p.m. Wednesday night, that is December 30th, the Cotton Bowl Classic. That, of course, is in Jerry World. Number 7, Florida versus number 6, Oklahoma. Florida, for some reason, is favored by 3. Carla, take it away.
Yeah, that's a head scratcher. Because I mean, statistically, if you look at these two teams, they're actually pretty even. Although it is really interesting that Oklahoma actually has the better defensive numbers between the two teams. But there's just one really huge difference here from the Florida that we have seen in the past, and I'm going to say this being married to a Florida grad, so I am a Gator wife, so to speak. Florida's going to be out a lot of players for this game. Most importantly, Kyle Pitts. And we've seen what Florida looks like without Kyle Pitts, and it's just a completely different offense. And so that's a problem to begin with. And then just within the past couple of days, their leading wide receiver also opted out of this game.
Oh.
And so now you have this problem, which I hate to bring up the NFL conversation again, but that was the big deal about your Browns yesterday was who's Baker Mayfield going to throw the football to? And the answer was apparently not much of anybody.
A one tight end.
Right. That's what Kyle Trask is faced with.
Yeah.
In this bowl game, which is kind of a shame, but I understand this year's really weird and I get that. And so you understand what's happening here, but with this Florida offense is just not going to look anything like it's looked all year because both, the top 2 or 3 targets that Trask would throw to are not playing in this game. So I think that changes the conversation completely. And I think Oklahoma, because their defense is better, and they're going to be facing an offense that's missing some of its most valuable weapons. Oklahoma is going to win this football game.
Okay. I just the rap that Oklahoma has had on this show and elsewhere for many years is spectacular offense, no defense. The thing that's different this year being what it is Oklahoma plays defense.
Yeah.
Hello. Where did this come from? They're giving up less than 100 yards rushing a game and just over 20 points per game. So you're not going to mistake them for all timers, but they're playing for them solid defense.
Funny what happens when you hire a defensive coordinator from the Big Ten.
I know. It's like some kind of weird miraculous thing that has happened. But that's not the only thing that's going on here. Improved defense. Certainly the players who have opted out for Florida are going to make a difference. But just looking at the general trend of these two teams, Oklahoma had its losses early in the season. And has rolled through the rest of the year. Florida, you don't want to go into your bowl game. Granted, one of these games is Alabama, but the other one is an inexcusable loss. But you don't want to roll into your bowl game with 2 straight losses behind you. That's just kind of trending in the wrong direction. Even without the loss of the offensive players, I would be picking Oklahoma in this game, and I think with the loss of the Kyle and the other guys, that makes us even more certain. Sooners will take home the Cotton Bowl Classic on Friday, January 1st. We start at noon. Boys and girls, make sure that you're awake bright and early. Is there still a Rose Parade?
I was going to ask the same thing. I don't know. Is there a Rose Parade? I hope so. That's my tradition. That's my traditional wake up on New Year's Eve. That's something mimosa and Rose Parade. Like that's a thing.
Well, okay. So, have your mimosa a little bit later and turn on the Peach Bowl from Atlanta. This is at noon on Friday. Number 9, Georgia versus number 8, Cincinnati. Cincinnati's favored by 7. Carla, what do you think?
This sounds really interesting. And my first note here is that Georgia's offense looks a whole lot different with JT Daniels.
It certainly does.
Than it has been. And we had knocked Georgia's offense pretty good earlier in the season.
So.
Right. But they look a lot different. Here's the thing with this one. Is that, we've seen it since he kind of turned his season around. Desmond Ridder is a special quarterback at Cincinnati. And after he started the year not so great, he turned it around and, threw 11 touchdowns and just kind of willed Cincinnati to a CUSA title, or an American title. I'm sorry.
Yep.
They used to be CUSA. Dating myself there. So he willed them, to an American title. And this is another one of those interesting challenges is that, this game would be pretty even, I think, and until you look at who's sitting out in this game. And Georgia has a bunch of defensive players who have opted out of this game. And if we had a knock against Georgia's defense, it was its secondary, which we've seen a number of times this year, i.e. against Alabama, against, a number of different opponents, that their secondary just hasn't quite looked up to par. And when you have a bunch of secondary players who have opted out, who are graduating and opting out for the draft, that doesn't help you in that situation. And so even if Georgia's offense can keep up with what Cincinnati is capable of, I don't know if they can slow down Cincinnati enough to be able to make up that difference. So and Cincinnati's playing with a chip on its shoulder. This is a team that thought it should have been in the playoff. They've got a lot to prove here, and Georgia really doesn't. That Georgia had the season that everybody kind of expected them that maybe they were going to make the playoff this year. But it's not a huge drop off. They're still playing in a New Year's Six bowl. I think the Bearcats figure out a way to go to Georgia and win this game essentially on Georgia's home field.
Right.
I know it's not literally in Athens, but like same thing, right?
Same thing. Yes, clearly.
The Mercedes-Benz Colossal Dome or whatever it is now. It's a monstrosity. If you've ever, at least being in Nashville, we don't live up, it's 4 hours down to Atlanta, and you can see it when you're heading down, and it's just
from like someplace when you get to like the Alabama Georgia line. Can you see it there?
Probably from Lookout Mountain.
Yeah. Okay.
You probably could see it from Lookout Mountain. I've not been up Lookout Mountain since they built that thing. But yeah, I'm sure of it. You could see it. I have no idea. No, I think Cincinnati figures out a way to win this football game. And makes a statement, to say, hey, we got some from the playoff.
I am generally skeptical about the arguments from Group of Five programs about how they match up with Power Five teams, and the big difference is this: Luke Fickell and Kirby Smart aren't recruiting the same guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
They are generally, not always, there'll be some overlap, but they are generally looking at different pools of potential players, and the talent level of the players that Kirby Smart is talking to is different, faster, stronger, bigger than the guys that Luke Fickell's talking to. That's just it's just how it is. So in most circumstances, certainly on paper, when you put those two things together, coaching may be the same, records, whatever, but the team with the bigger, stronger, faster guys is going to win. Most of the time, not always. And I'll get in a second. Now, but when you look at when you look at what's going on in this situation, and especially the defensive guys who have opted out for Georgia, you look at what Luke Fickell has done in Cincinnati. He has assembled a real team, a group of guys who play together. They're playing with a chip on their shoulder, no question. They've got motivation by not getting a playoff invitation. And I will say, as a side note, there's got to be a way to get a Group of Five team in the playoff somehow. And I know that's going to involve expanding, and it's got to happen. And that counts for something. Being a solid team counts for something. And if you look at the history, the players who've opted out, notwithstanding, I mean, it does happen once in a while. Boise's done it, right?
Yeah.
UCF has done it.
Yep.
Cincinnati could do this.
Mm-hmm.
My initial thought at looking at the line is like, a touchdown. Wow. I'm not sure. But I feel like kind of the intangible stuff here. And I'm thrilled that Luke Fickell's was one of my favorite players when I was a kid. We were both in college at the same time. He has always handled himself well as a coach. He has put something really special together in Cincinnati, and I'm not a Bearcats fan. Cincinnati's they're annoying to Ohio State fans.
Bearcats, Badgers, both annoying.
Yeah. But I'm pulling for him. I really, really want the Bearcats to win this game, and I think they can. I think they have the same kind of intangible thing that those Boise teams had, and
Mm-hmm.
UCF had that one year. They can beat Georgia, and I think they will. I think that's the pick. Yeah. We moved to Saturday, January 2nd, to continue with I guess these would be like the New Year's 4 games. I don't know.
Sure.
We're calling them Saturday, December 4 p.m. Fiesta Bowl, Glendale, Arizona. Number 25 Oregon versus number 10 Iowa State. The Clones are favored by 4.5 points. Carla.
This is the bowl.
Yeah, kind of all the way around.
Yeah, all the way around. Nothing about this bowl game makes any sense at all. Congratulations, Oregon, for making the Fiesta Bowl after not winning your division. Because that's just what 2020 is all about, right? I mean, they don't win their division. They get the automatic bid into the Pac-12 title game because Washington can't go. And so the conference says, okay, fine, Oregon, you were the runner-up, you go. And then Oregon does something stupid and wins the game. Beats USC, right? And so now we end up, and so then USC opts out of bowl games after they lost the conference title game. And so now you have like Oregon's like one of the few Pac-12 teams that said, okay, yeah, sure, we'll go to a bowl game. And so congratulations, you get the Fiesta Bowl. That's almost as good as the New Mexico Bowl being played in Frisco, Texas in a soccer field, a soccer stadium. Oregon in the Fiesta Bowl, almost, where the scales tip there, that they're about even. This is a team that should not be playing in this level of a bowl game, but that's just how the chips fell, and they are the benefactors of the way things happened in 2020. Yes. Iowa State is having itself a season. And I give the Cyclones credit. This is the first time that they've been ranked this highly in about 20 years. Heading into the postseason. I looked that up today. I was surprised by that it had been that long, but here they are playing in a New Year's Six Bowl. Iowa State's real good, and we knew this, and yes, if you look at the record, Iowa State has 3 losses. 2 of those games, they were in it really, really close, and that was Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. They were within single scores, and the first game of the season that they lost was to Louisiana, and we all laughed at it at the time, but now,
right? Top 25 Louisiana.
Top 25 Louisiana that finished off the season. And after what we saw at a Coastal on Saturday night, had Louisiana and Coastal played in the Sun Belt title game, I'm not sure who would have won that game now. So we balked at the co-champions thing, but I don't know, if they had to play each other again, I'm not sure. No, Coastal should have been the solo champions. They won the one head-to-head matchup. They should be the solo champions, but if they had to play again, I'm not sure who would win that game. So you're looking at an Iowa State team that's put together a really nice season. Brock Purdy has had a really good season, as has his running back Breece Hall, who is just a sophomore. And
I didn't know that.
He is just a sophomore. Ooh, okay. I know, and he's a Doak Walker finalist. Like, this kid's legit. 19 rushing touchdowns. And it's just been a long time since Iowa State's been on this stage, other than the fact that Iowa State got this slot instead of Coastal, because this was the slot that could have gone to Coastal had the bowl committee decided to do that. Yes. And they didn't, and they put Iowa State in here. And so, okay, since we're left with this matchup between Oregon and Iowa State, I'm going to take the Cyclones here. They have a stronger body of work. Oregon has been very inconsistent, thus losing their division. They've had an up and down year that's been really, really short. I think Iowa State kind of surprises some people, because people are used to hearing the Oregon name brand, and they have a mental image as to what Oregon football looks like, and that's not what they look like this year. No. I'm going to take Iowa State in the Fiesta Bowl. Why not? Okay.
I wonder if that has an impact on the line for this game. That Oregon is kind of a brand name, and Iowa State is like, you mean not the Hawkeyes?
Right.
I bet that there's something to that. Anyway, let me back up. If you and I were talking about this like in the beginning, like at the end of August, pretend for a second this is a normal football season, and we're previewing stuff and looking at the Pac-12, and looking at the Big 12, and I heard Oregon was one of the favorites in their conference. Iowa State had been mentioned a fair amount as a team to watch. Maybe not, Pac or Big 12 champion, or even playing for the Big 12 championship, but as a solid team that could contend. So we're kind of at a place where it wouldn't have been unexpected,
right,
for this game to happen, except how we got here, especially the Pac-12 component it's just so weird. But okay, so we have the Ducks who backed into this game. This isn't the Ducks want to be this is not like a freewheeling offense, regardless of their reputation. They want to be kind of a physical running team, which is and they don't, as it turns out, they don't actually do that well, at least not consistently. Iowa State, on the other hand, is a pretty complete team. Solid offensively, good defense. They are tested to the degree you can do such a thing in the Big 12, and they will beat the Ducks in the desert. I'm actually fairly certain of this one. That game is followed at 8 p.m. by the Orange Bowl down in South Florida. Number 5 Texas A&M and number 13 North Carolina. Texas A&M is favored by 7.5 points. Carla?
And yet the last time we saw North Carolina, they were putting a beat down on Miami. That we never saw coming, because we all took Miami in that game. So North Carolina's offense is legit. We said that a couple times this year. We knew that Notre Dame was going to have their hands full with them, and they did. And then we were like, yeah, but that Miami defense is pretty good. And, we think they'll be able to. No, not so much. North Carolina's got a pretty dang good offense, and Sam Howell's just spectacular. The thing here is that the Tar Heels philosophy this year is just they're going to outscore everybody, right? They kind of took the mentality of the Big 12 and said, you know what, we're just going to outscore you. And for them, it's worked quite well because they play in the ACC, and if you get a really good offense in the ACC, other than against Clemson, you're going to be just fine. Notre Dame this year, not since Notre Dame was in the conference, but against everybody else, it's just like, yeah, sure, keep up, good luck. And they won football games. So here's the thing: Texas A&M's defense actually pretty good. So we'll see whether or not the Aggies can slow down this offense from North Carolina. And on the flip side, everybody talks about Kellen Mond, but I think the key to this one is actually whether or not Isaiah Spiller can get going. Because the Carolina run defense was really hit or miss this year. They had games where they played out of their minds and held legitimate running backs to under 100 yards. And then they had other games where they gave up like 250 to 300 yards on the ground. There was no real rhyme or reason to it if you go back and look at the stats. And so I think the key to this game is to whether or not Isaiah Spiller can get going for the Aggies, and whether or not the Carolina run defense is where are they for the day. Could be the difference in this game. This is one of those just kind of bowl games. It doesn't really mean anything to either team at this point. Texas A&M is playing with a chip on its shoulder again, because this is a team that also felt that it should have been in the playoff. Blah, 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 right? I know. Here's the other thing that's worth noting in this game that's kind of flown under the radar, and I haven't seen anybody else mention this. The head coach of Texas A&M is Jimbo Fisher. He happens to know a little bit about this North Carolina team.
Right.
Because it hasn't been all that long since he's been out of the ACC. Right. So he knows a little bit about Mac Brown's schemes. And so I think that also plays into this a little bit, just the knowledge of the way that the other teams are going to play. And I'm going to give Texas A&M the edge in this one just by a nose. I think this could be stupid fun. This, if you're going to put like one of the New Year's Six games into Bowlapalooza category, I think this would be the one I would move over, because I just think it's going to be a fun football game between these two teams. Okay. But I'll give the Aggies the edge. Okay.
I agree with that. This is potential for the fun quotient, I think, is high here. I'm going a different direction, actually. As you noted, there was a lot of whining from Jimbo Fisher about who should get in the playoff, and of course, who should not. Yeah. Does that stuff rub off on the team? Are the Aggies, do they end up being disappointed with the trip to the Orange Bowl if they're not, if they didn't get to the playoff? They closed the season playing well. They wrapped it up the right way. Kellen Mond is experienced. He's solid. They've got a good running game, as you've noticed. The thing is, if they're not focused on this game, they could get smoked.
Yeah.
Because North Carolina's offense is that good. Is that my prediction? It is not. However, UNC's offense is going to win this game for them. So take the Tar Heels. And that leaves us with 2 more games.
Mm-hmm.
We backtrack a day back to New Year's Day at 4 p.m. in the Rose Bowl, which is not the Rose Bowl, but in Jerry Dome. Number 4 Notre Dame versus number 1 Alabama. Alabama's favored by 19.5 points. Good. Carla, go ahead.
Yeah, they said it was the largest line in a game, like in a bowl game. Like there's only 2 other bowl games ever that have had larger lines. I think I read that today somewhere. Yeah, that line is stupid. But also could be realistic. This is another one of those, what we were just talking about, was which team shows up, right?
Yeah.
So here's the deal with this one. I went back and I looked at the ACC title game. And the ACC title game could have been a completely different game. Mm-hmm. If you go back and you look at the way that game opened, mm-hmm. right? Notre Dame took the opening kick, drove down the field for a field goal, drive stalled, about the 38-yard line-ish, kicked a 51-yard field goal. So the Irish actually led that game 3-0. And then they forced Trevor Lawrence into a mistake, picked the ball off, drove again, got it all the way down to within 1st and goal, inside the 10, mm-hmm. unable to put the ball in the end zone, lined up to kick the field goal, missed the field goal. And it was in that moment when that field goal was missed that I audibly said in my living room, you can't leave points on the field like that. 3 plays later, Clemson's in the end zone, mm-hmm. and the game is over. Mm-hmm. Notre Dame beat Clemson first go round. Yeah, it was without Trevor Lawrence. I get that. Notre Dame was able to do it then. The key to this game, if Notre Dame wants to have a shot, they have to score early. They cannot leave points on the field. Okay. Again, if Notre Dame is able to keep it close early, this game is a completely different ball game. All you have to do is go back and watch what happened the first time those 2 teams met, right? Mm-hmm. Notre Dame was able to keep that game close, keep it within reach, and then their defense was able to get enough stops that they were able to come back and win that game in overtime. Now, it took everything they had. That's what this is going to take for them if they want a shot in this one. Because if the Alabama offense gets going, we saw this in the ACC title game, Notre Dame's not built to keep up with a shootout. Right. That's not the way that they're built. So the only hope that Notre Dame has in this game is to keep it close early and play their game and don't leave points on the field. Are they going to be able to do that against one of the top offenses in the country, against one of the top defenses in the country? I don't think so. But that's the key. That's how Notre Dame wins this game. If mm-hmm. Notre Dame is going to win this game, they have to do that. Are they going to be able to do that? I don't think they are. I would like to see this game closer than 19.5. But if Alabama gets going early, it could be out of reach before the end of the second quarter. It really could be. So no, unfortunately, this is just going to be a speed bump for Alabama. It's just how big is the win?
Okay. I've watched a lot of Notre Dame this year, and my sense is that Notre Dame is better than a team that would lose to Alabama by 20 points. But
you say that, but then they did it in the ACC title game.
But then they could turn around and do that. The Irish's defense is very good across the board, but especially the front 7. That portends well for maybe slowing down Najee Harris and getting some pressure on Mac Jones. It's also helpful that these are not speed guys. They are quick, but they're really physical. And I saw a preview show that says these guys enjoy the violence, which is a pretty cool compliment for defensive linemen, I think.
Yeah.
So maybe that's something that can be parlayed into an advantage early on. If Notre Dame's defense can take away Bama's run game, they can then focus on doing whatever it is they need to do to slow down Devonta Smith. Because man, they're going to need some help doing that if they're going to win this game. The other if is Ian Book. Notre Dame runs the ball well, and if they're able to, they will if they have some success there. And I think they can behind an experienced physical offensive line. That will help them obviously to slow down the game, possess the ball, but I don't think that's enough to keep the Irish in it. That's where Book comes in. He's got to make plays. He has talented tight ends. He has to get the ball downfield once in a while. He's got to make smart, effective scrambles. If he's able to do that, then you're keeping Alabama's offense on its heels. And maybe that turns into longer possessions with, as you said, points at the end. Mm-hmm. And that's the recipe, I think. These are a lot of observations about Notre Dame because they're the team that needs to put together the exceptional game, right? It very well could be that Alabama just being Alabama is enough. They are that good. I think the first team AP All-America team announced today, and I think Alabama had 6 guys on the first team. That's ridiculous. I definitely, if I were a gambling person, I would be really tempted to take Notre Dame in the points. But Alabama is the team that will move on from this game. And that leaves us with a game that I'm slowly getting ready for. 8 p.m. on New Year's Day at the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans. Number 2 Clemson versus number 3 Ohio State. Carla, please go ahead.
So the first thing I have down here in my notes, big question, is the Ohio State defense ready for this?
Yeah.
I will say this though. Ohio State is the best rush defense that Clemson has faced this year, even better than Notre Dame's. Mm-hmm. So there is that. But is bottling up ATN going to be enough against a Clemson offense like this? We saw what Notre Dame was able to stay in the game by bottling up ATN and having, the backup quarterback DJU was in, and they, I'm not even going to try.
Yeah. You're fine.
We're past that.
We made honest attempts when it was appropriate, and we don't need to worry about it.
He's again. DJU now. And so we have to start saying it every freaking week next year. Happy 2021 to us. But that was how that's what I just said. That's how Notre Dame stayed in that game, was they were able to kind of bottle up ATN a little bit, slow him down a bit. And I think the Ohio State defense is capable of bottling up ATN. The problem with Clemson is the fact that Trevor Lawrence loves the dump and dive kind of stuff, right? So ATN not running the football isn't a problem when you can hit him on a 4-yard screen. Right. Mm-hmm. And the Clemson offense is built for that. If the run game gets shut down, then they put the ball in Trevor Lawrence's hand and let him screen you to death. My big concern about Ohio State in this game, and this is a game that I would normally be pulling for Ohio State in, and I am pulling for Ohio State in this game, because it's conference loyalties, right? We're bowl season. We're all on the conference. Here's my real big concern, and it's not necessarily even just the defense. It's what happened in the Big Ten title game. Yeah. Because Justin Fields didn't look good, and he didn't have a really good day. And it really came down to Trey Sermon, right? I mean, Trey Sermon had the game of his life.
Yes.
And the game of all time in the conference. 300 plus yards on the ground. And that's what propelled, the air game wasn't working. So it's like, okay, fine, let's run the football. Mm-hmm. And that worked against Northwestern. Clemson's run defense is pretty dang good too. Mm-hmm. Much better than Northwestern's. And I'm not sure that's going to be the answer here. or it's going to be enough of an answer here. I don't know if Ohio State's defense can slow down Clemson enough, and I'm not sure the Ohio State run offense is going to be able to bail it out to the level that it had to in the Big Ten title game. I think those two things together, unfortunately, add up to yet another Clemson win in the Sugar Bowl, and we get yet another Clemson, Alabama national title game. I really want Ohio State to win this game, though. I would love it so much if Ohio State wins this game.
I would kind of feel the same way. I would be kind of excited about that. I think there are two things to focus on with this game. Thing number one is Justin Fields. Ohio State fans, Clemson's going to score on our pass defense. We had the worst pass defense in the Big Ten this season. Trevor's good, big, talented guys on the outside that he can throw to. We're not going to stop them every time. So the remedy is an offense that will keep up. We are good enough. Ohio State is good enough to do that, although we have not shown it consistently. Justin Fields had lousy games against the two best defenses that he faced this season, Indiana and Northwestern, in the title game that you referenced. If he does that on Friday, Ohio State has no chance. Mm-hmm. He is capable of being comfortable and confident and smooth and damn near flawless. And if he can do that with a balanced running game, whether that's Sermon, whether that's Master Teague, combination of both, the offense will be in good shape. And Ohio State can keep up with Clemson if Ohio State is playing up to its capability.
Which we saw against Penn State.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they've done it against decent defenses, mm-hmm. But you're right. We haven't seen it against.
Here's thing number two. A little more of an intangible. When the coaches' polls results were released a few days ago, I am fairly certain that I'm not the only person who noticed that Dabo doesn't think Ohio State is a top 10 team. To be specific, he voted his Sugar Bowl opponent as the number 11 team in the country. Now, he said earlier today that he respects Ohio State, blah, 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 but didn't think that any team that only played 6 games could be in the top 10. I'm sure this plays well in whatever Clemson, South Carolina is. Why would you do that to your team? To your own team? Mm-hmm. Why would you hand your opponent an opponent that's good enough to beat you? That kind of motivation. I'm honestly baffled by it. I am certainly irritated by it, and I'm just a fan. So I can't imagine how often the number 11 is getting passed around the Woody Hayes Athletic Center this week. There's motivation. There is we don't know for sure which players are going to be back from COVID restrictions, but chances are good that we're going to get a bunch of guys back. And that's a combination that I honestly, I don't get what Dabo's doing there. But I don't think it's going to work out well for him. I mean, look, this is going to be really hard. I mentioned the Ohio State's pass defense. Those guys, they're young, they're basically only halfway through a season, right?
Right.
6 games. They're halfway through a normal college football season. And they're going to have to play like grown men in this game. They're still going to get beat, and they're going to have to not worry about it. Justin Fields can't have the brain farts that he's had against Indiana and Northwestern. But all these guys are at Ohio State for a reason. They're good enough to be there, and they're good enough in terms of talent, if not experience, to play with anybody in the country. And that little extra thing that Clemson head coach did, who is by the way now supplanted Jimmy as my most hated head coach in college football. Sorry, Jimmy. We'll get back to you next year, maybe. With that little extra thing, I think Ohio State wins this. I know you're not surprised that that's my pick, but it can happen. And I think it will. And we'll talk about Ohio State and Alabama next week. Boys and girls, you can hear the Carla and Crappy Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, etc., etc. You can watch us on YouTube and the show's Facebook page. If you like us, please subscribe, rate, and review. If you don't, mind your own damn business. And if you be sure to come back next week to see not only exactly how wrong we were, but to see what Carla and I think about who's going to win the national championship. Carla, any final thoughts from you?
Well, it's a little bit of a sobering thought. The Music City Bowl isn't being played.
Yes.
That was supposed to be played on Wednesday. Yep. And when we were first recorded Bowlapalooza, it was because Iowa was having COVID-related issues, and it ends up being canceled because Missouri has COVID-related issues and they can field a team. But, hindsight being what it is, it's actually a really good thing that we're not hosting a bowl game here in Nashville this week. Mm-hmm. It's not been a pretty week here in Nashville. And so that's kind of where my head's been for a good portion of the week. It's hard not to. Thankful that everybody's okay and that, we didn't have an additional influx of tourists here at a time that we just flat out don't need them. To be interrupting that, because if you don't know the way that Nashville is laid out, the area that was impacted by the events of Christmas morning is directly across the river from where the game would have been played, and Second Avenue is kind of where they stage a lot of the fan stuff, and that now looks like a war zone.
That was Second Avenue. How many blocks off of Broadway?
Just 2.
Okay, yeah,
2 blocks.
I thought it was close.
Yeah, there was debris found on Broadway. Yeah, 40 buildings have been confirmed damaged. And it sucks, as someone, I've only lived in Nashville for a decade. But the buildings on Second Avenue are some of the most historic in all of downtown. They were the ones that have been here forever. They survived the flood in 2010, and all those kinds of things. And now a bunch of them are going to have to come down. Mm-hmm. And that just sucks in a lot of ways. And I know some people who lived right down in that area that are now dealing with, fixing windows, and it's not been a good week here in Nashville. And so we appreciate, a lot of people have been, pouring things in, and we appreciate the thoughts and everything, but it's going to be a long recovery process. So it's good that we're not hosting a bowl game. Mm-hmm. Let's get this behind us and try to, clean things up. So it's been a sobering week. Not the way you wanted to end 2020, but right. There will be football again in Nashville. Yes. It'll be good football again in Nashville, and we'll look forward to hosting a Music City Bowl in the 2021-22 bowl season.
Get the resurrection of the Black and Gold Bowl out there next year, maybe.
Maybe. We'll have to see.
I have one Black and Gold team that I am really excited to play on Thursday afternoon. That is New Year's Day afternoon. That is not only the Arizona Bowl, which was my Bowlapalooza pick, but the one that I'm stoked about is WVU Army. We went over this during Bowlapalooza. Army. The Liberty Bowl went out of its way to make this game happen after everyone in college football decided they did not want to play Army. And as I said back at the outset, Army is my team this year. And I have not forgotten that, in spite of the scarlet gray that I'm wearing right now. This is my natural habitat. But go Army, beat the Mountaineers. And I kind of think they will.
Yeah, I think they will too.
I think they can do that.
Especially because remember when we talked about Bowlapalooza, we said the weather always sucks at the Liberty Bowl.
True.
It's gonna rain all week here. It's going to rain. The rain's going to start coming in and into the Nashville area on Wednesday night, and it's going to rain all day New Year's Eve. So it's going to be a muddy mess. And who happens to run the football a whole heck of a lot? Go Army.
Go Army. Beat the Nears. Boys and girls, again, we thank you for joining us, and we hope you continue to enjoy college football's bowl season, even the truncated version that we're working our way through this year. Carla, here's to you and to Nashville, and to our predictions and everything else, and we will be back here next week for one more show. Talk about the national championship, guys. Cheers, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you again.